Hey everybody guys, so I'm coming at you with another video, and today I'm doing a review on DC's Red Son. Let's get into it.
Extraordinary reports coming out of the Soviet Union. Tales of a being with powers and abilities far beyond those of mortal men.
As I said, Mr. President, of course I understand your concern, but I assure you the Luthor Company has this under control.
I'm honored to have you here, Ambassador.
Call me Diana. And what shall I call you?
Superman. You think you're going to stop me, Batman?
What now?
Now I save the world.
Okay, Red Son. So this is something that someone told me about. Actually, it was a coworker that told me I should check it out. I really didn't think anything of it, so I really put it away. Like, okay, cool, whatever. And then, so I finally got time to do it, obviously in quarantine time. And I wanted to take my time and watch Red Son. And yeah, it was really fun. It was really great. And so I was kind of wish I kind of watched it sooner, but I think watching it right now was kind of appropriate because it kind of goes into like my main topics later on. Again, the movie itself is cool. So you have Superman in this Elseworld concept that instead of landing in the US, he lands in the Soviet Union. And then you kind of figure out intrinsically, is he naturally good, or is it more of his upbringing and how his American values versus his Soviet values, right? And so it's a nice twist on this Superman character, you know? Overall, I think it was great, you know, like, but I was really kind of surprised in a sense. Well, it's a good surprise that, you know, I got to see Batman, Wonder Woman, the Green Lantern Corps, and Brainiac, Lex Luthor. Lex Luthor and Lois Lane, I would imagine, was going to be there because you're going to need Superman. But as a standalone, I thought it was going to be just Superman, but I was still pleasantly surprised that, you know, I got to see all these other characters, and it's an interesting take on them too. And obviously it's a comic book movie, and it's fine, it's cool, but I would have kind of liked to delve into Superman as a Soviet hero by himself without all the extra stuff, but it didn't take away. I still enjoyed it. The title itself, I think, was really great. Red Son, you know, that refers to the Red Army, you know, for the Soviet Union. But as far as the Red Son, because he is the son of the Red Army, so that's kind of appropriate. And it's also appropriate because he's come from Krypton with a red sun. So I think it's a nice play on words and really poetic to use it as the title of this movie. So overall, I think it's great. I'm gonna do like more like a deep state getting into all of this, talking about like more of the theology and political aspects of this. So stay tuned and watch that. But overall, I definitely recommend this, and you're more than welcome to check it out. It's a great watch. If anything negative I think about the movie is that it doesn't have a lot of rewatch value. That like once you watch it, like, okay, you got the concept. There's no like, you don't want to explore this universe or anything. It's just a nice standalone. So I kind of see it as a negative because there's really nothing to watch after you watch it. It's like, okay, cool, like you're just done with it. But yeah, but other than that, it's entertaining. It's cool. It's whatever. Okay, so now. So obviously with my videos, I like to go deep into like thought and like breaking it down and all the concept that goes into it, talking about political and theology and everything. And so first one, Utopia. I think it's interesting that Utopia is being brought out, and Utopia is usually a leftist ideology. Actually, Utopia is something that Karl Marx draws from, right? And so it does lean toward that, into this perfect place, right? But Michael Knowles points out like utopia means no place, in a sense that like as much as you would want as a beautiful place, that place doesn't exist. And I think this movie illustrates that to a great degree. So one aspect of like Marxism, socialism, communism is that it's only gonna be perfect when I do it, you know? And it's great that we go and dive into that because, you know, Superman takes out Stalin, and then he thinks that in his righteousness and in his purity, essentially, that he can fix what Stalin didn't, right? And again, he is essentially Superman is essentially a god, right? Like, for all intents and purposes, he's a god, right? He's stronger, flies, invulnerable, all this stuff, and he's a god among men, right? And even him couldn't do it, you know? Like, even him, he couldn't do it. Like, when it comes to, like, the Soviet Union, like, the government is God, and pretty much Superman is the embodiment of the state, and he is God. And it's interesting that they went there, right? And like he rules over fear, right? He talks to his friends from like North Korea. He had dinner with them, and he's like, I fear you, right? And it's not in a benevolent fear. It's actual out of oppression fear. And then even with that, you know, like he needed Brainiac to, instead of having gulags, he essentially has people under like mind control or drones, right? And so it kind of goes into a process of thinking like, do you want peace without freedom, or do you want freedom without peace? Because that was a critique that he had with capitalism, like it espouses like civil unrest, and right, and so he talks about all the peace that he has versus all the civil unrest the U.S. had in that movie, right? In the movie, right? To the point, like, okay, like I said, like, he created his utopia, but to the point where like health and all this stuff is great and all this stuff, but you have drones. Like, at what point is your humanity given away? So even in his utopia, it's not great. I don't know. Maybe you think that's great to have a perfect society and then you have drones, you know. But I lean towards freedom, like life, liberty, and pursuit of happiness. And if that causes, when you have free will, obviously that's gonna cause everyone like disagreements, right? And so, but I would still want my personal freedoms above that, right? And like, it's funny that he wanted this ideology war versus like like he really like touched pretty much the whole world instead of like the US, and he had this complex like, I want to beat them ideological wise, rather than just I can just take them out. Obviously in the movie, like, Brainiac is assisting in this, right? And like, he had his own agenda for world domination, so he was just using using Superman. So obviously there's that point, but there's another point too. Like, what if Brainiac wasn't there? I think Superman would have realized communism, socialism wouldn't work, you know? Going into current events, I think it was appropriate that I kind of watched this during the week that Bernie Sanders dropped out of the presidential race. And so a portion of me wanted him to be the Democratic candidate, because I kind of wanted to see how many people are willing to go for a socialist, right? And so I wanted to see capitalism versus socialism, and like which ideology would have won. And like, that actually kind of almost worried people, because, you know, what if socialism actually did win? And so there's those aspects, right? But in the sense that, and I think it's also illuminating that a lot of the Bernie supporters are dropping out. Like, they are dropping the democratic socialist portion, the democratic side. Like, they're just saying they're full on socialist. Well, thanks for telling us that a lot of us already knew. So I kind of want to like reach out to other like Bernie supporters and see how they view this movie, because this is how I think this movie kind of shows what the socialism, communism, perfect ideal society is. And I want to dive into if they actually agree to that. Like, do they just want drones? Because a lot of the leftist ideology is canceling the left, you know? Canceling the right. They want to, a lot, like, their Project Veritas has done these undercover investigations going into Bernie's supporters, and their, not just supporters, their actual campaign workers. And a lot of them talked about like putting people in gulags and like the actual things that I actually make fun of people and like jokes, but they actually think that this is a good idea. Like, we need to have re-education camps, and they actually sympathize, like, oh, the train systems in the Soviet was really great or whatever. And it's like, I want to like dive into like, is the Superman country what they really want? They just want drones, and they just want what they consider great and power. I don't know. And that kind of goes into my next point, which, referring back to the movie, like, Superman has this like ideological war in his head of like socialism versus, you know, the Soviet powers versus American powers, right? In this Cold War type thing. And I kind of want to dive into that. And it goes into like a Will Witt video and PragerU and all that stuff too. Like which civilization is great? Why is Western civilization great? And the people they talk to, like, obviously they don't want to answer that question because they don't want to agree that Western civilization is good or it's better than other civilizations. And so, I mean, you can dive into that too, because there's a level in which I can understand why another person wouldn't want to go there, because they equate Western civilization with British white, like British white people ancestry, American white, Australian white, whatever. But like Western civilization also includes like Spain and Portugal and Dutch and Italy and all this stuff. And so are they equating all of that? Because you can also say, no, that also refers to like colonizer. And sorry, this is like going to like way deep, but like it goes into like colonizers, right? And so people have a bad, because leftist ideology in academia, they say like, oh, all you bad colonizers, all this stuff too. But okay, well, Genghis Khan was a colonizer. Like, he colonized from the Pacific to the Mediterranean into Eastern Europe. We don't refer him as a colonizer. We don't refer to Islam, the Caliphate, as a colonizer. They took over all of Northern Europe, all of Northern Africa, sorry, into southern Spain, and then all the way into Central Asia, into Southeast Asia, and yet they do it a millennia, centuries ahead of the Europeans, and so they don't refer to Islam Caliphate as colonizers. And so I think sorry, just going back to the point, like, yes, Western civilization, and you don't have to be, I don't understand why people, I get why they equate it to just white people, but you don't have to be white to support Western civilization. And I read into Ben Shapiro's The Right Side of History, where he talks about faith and reason and how that is a cradle of Western civilization, where it's Athens and Jerusalem, essentially. But that's a whole different topic. But the point, going back to the movie, is that I think it's interesting that, like, again, Superman had this ideological debate, and I kind of want to, and this movie kind of serves as a point to, like, which ideology rules supreme. And like, obviously I lean towards the side of capitalism over socialism, but like I just, like, it's just a nice talking point to get into all of this, because like getting into all of it goes into like the 2020 politics and election, and because a lot of people who were Born-Year supporters were like anti-Trump and all this stuff. And so like it's kind of, for me it's relevant because I'm inundated to the cultural events and the political realm and all this stuff, and listening to all this stuff. So for me it's very relevant, and I know this is hella deep state and hella like talking about this, and like just watching a movie, someone can just be like, just watch a damn movie. Do you have to think about all of this? But this is what I do. I just watch something and I come up with all the aspects and concepts and everything. So like, I hope you like this part of the video, because this is just me ranting about current events and then using Red Sun as a talking point, as a starting off point, jumping point to going into all these other topics. But yeah, whatever. I think I ranted enough. Okay, wrapping it up after all of that rant. Yes, Red Sun is a great movie. You know, it is a great, you know, like, it's fun for itself, but for me it's a nice jumping off point to get into diving into all these other concepts, whether it's ideology or theology and all that stuff. And it's just how my brain kind of works and my quarantine thoughts being locked in. But like, I like talking about these things. But so yeah, again, the movie is great. It's a good talking point to move forward further and everything. So I do recommend you guys checking out that movie. But on the other topics, comment below. Tell me what you think about the movie itself, or everything that I just ranted about. Like, am I right? Am I wrong? What do you think? Like, am I extreme? And I'm willing to like adjust my thoughts, you know, right? And so yeah. Thanks for watching. You can follow me on my Instagram at HeyMitchMitch. You can also follow my joint Instagram at It's Mandatory Fun, where I do other videos with my friend Jen. And yeah, check out my next video, and you please check out my other videos as well. Thanks for watching. See you in the next video. Peace, peace, peace. Be with you.
I ain't feeling lonely, and I wanna admit it's time to end the ride.